Almost 400 years ago, in the richest country on earth, people traded the price of a grand house for a single flower bulb. Then, in a matter of weeks, it all came crashing down. This is the story of the very first bubble. To understand it, start here. In the early 1600s, the Dutch Republic was the wealthiest place in the world. Its ships ruled the seas, its merchants were rich, and a brand new middle class suddenly had money to spend and something to prove. Into this rich young country came a strange and beautiful new flower, the tulip, carried west from the Ottoman Empire. Nothing in Europe looked like it. It was exotic, hard to grow, and almost instantly, it became the ultimate status symbol. The most prized tulips had wild flame patterns streaking their petals. Nobody knew why. Today we do. It was a virus, the tulip-breaking virus, splitting the color into feathers and flames. It was rare, it was unpredictable, and it quietly weakened the bulb that carried it. One variety stood above them all, the Semper Augustus, with petals of flaming red on white. Only a handful existed. Collectors were obsessed. It was said that a single Semper Augustus bulb was worth more than a fine canal house in Amsterdam, with a coach and garden thrown in. Now, here's the odd thing. The treasure wasn't the flower. It was the bulb, a lumpy brown thing in the dirt. And a bulb takes years to grow into a bloom. So most of the year, there was nothing to actually see, or hold, or sell. So people started trading bulbs that were still buried in the ground, on paper, in smoky taverns. The Dutch had a name for it. The wind handle, the wind trade, because no real bulb ever changed hands. You were buying a promise, and selling it on before it ever bloomed. And the prices climbed. Then they soared. Between 1634 and 1636, a bulb you bought in the morning could be worth more by the evening. Everyone could see the line going up. So everyone wanted in before they missed out. At the very top, in the winter of 1636, the rarest bulbs reportedly sold for thousands of guilders each. The Semper Augustus is recorded changing hands for around 5,000, even 10,000 guilders, for a flower that did not yet exist above the soil. To put that in perspective, a skilled craftsman, a carpenter or a weaver, earned around 300 guilders in a whole year. The rarest bulbs cost more than 10 years of his life's work. For one flower. Imagine handing over a decade of your wages for something you could never eat, never live in, and that might rot in the ground before spring. That is the scale of it. And, to the people caught up in it, it felt completely normal. As the stories of overnight fortunes spread, more people rushed in. Why labor all year, when a single lucky bulb could change your life? The dream pulled the crowd forward. And a crowd all buying for one reason, that it keeps going up, is a very dangerous thing. Then, in February 1637, it broke. At an auction in Haarlem, a seller offered his bulbs, and for the first time, no one would buy. Word spread in hours. If no one is buying, what is any of this worth? Within weeks, prices fell by around 90%. Suddenly, thousands of people were holding paper contracts, promising to pay fortunes for bulbs now worth almost nothing. Buyers refused to pay. Sellers demanded their money. The courts threw up their hands and called the debts gambling. The wind trade had blown itself out. Now here is where the famous story gets it wrong. You have probably heard that this ruined the whole country, that ordinary families lost everything and threw themselves into the canals. We went back to the records. And most of that simply isn't true. The lurid tales of weavers selling their looms and ruined men drowning in despair came mostly from later sources. Calvinist preachers warning against greed, and a sensational book written 200 years afterward. They wanted a morality tale. So they painted a catastrophe. The historian and Goldgar dug through the actual paperwork. She found the trade was a fairly small circle of wealthy merchants and skilled craftsmen. Only a few dozen people paid the truly insane prices, and barely a handful were left in real financial trouble. The economy rolled on untouched. As Goldgar puts it, there were not that many people involved, and the economic repercussions were pretty minor. The real damage wasn't to the nation's wealth. It was to trust. Friends and neighbors who had made deals on a handshake suddenly owed each other fortunes over flowers. And yet, 4 centuries later, we still tell this story. Because the shape of it never changes. A new wonder, A rising price, a crowd that's sure it can't lose, and then the morning the buyers don't show. The tulip was first. It will not be the last. If you love the true story hiding behind things everyone thinks they know, subscribe. There's a new hand-drawn story every few days. I'm really glad you're here.